is sponsored by BetterHelp.
Hey, good morning, Fargo. 11:06 in the a.m. on a Thursday. Thursdays with Tony. I'm your host, Tony Gehrig. We've got a good show for you today. The second half of the show will be Mayor Tim Mahoney, City of Fargo. First guest today, Merrill Pepcorn, not to be confused with Dave Pepcorn, who is your nephew, right, Merrill?
That is exactly.
1 second here. I'm on. Try again. Big game. Do you want to get his mic for me?
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry. We're figuring it out here, Merrill.
Sure, come on. Sure, you invite me on your show and then don't turn my mic on. That's an old trick.
That's a pretty good one, right?
Come on, Tony.
I tried to have Merrill on. He just wouldn't talk to me.
We got something here now?
He wouldn't cover any issues, you know.
He just wouldn't say a thing.
I asked you when you walked in. I've never met you before. I have spoken to you before.
Yeah. Of course, we know who each other
correct
is or are.
I'm in your district. So
yeah.
44.
Yeah.
And so
you're the guy wearing a Pepcorn for Governor T-shirt.
Yeah,
I saw you this morning when I was walking the dog.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway.
But I asked if you get confused with your nephew sometimes, and you said it's about 50-50.
Yeah, well, except
right.
he's about 6'7", and I'm just an even 6-footer. But physically, not much difference. What we have most in common is our last name. David Pepcorn, City Commissioner Dave Pepcorn, is my nephew, and his father, Don, was my brother. He passed away several years ago. But also, Dave lives on the north side, as do I. We're both Fargo North grads and all that. And there was some confusion. There is occasionally. I think most people know I'm Merrill and he's Dave. But I figure if it comes to voting and people go into the voting booth and just recognize the Pepcorn name, I figure it's probably a break-even deal.
Sure.
If about half the people vote for me because I am Dave Pepcorn, they maybe think I am Dave, and half the people vote for me because they know I'm not Dave Pepcorn. So, I think it works probably for Dave that way as well.
I don't think your politics are exactly the same.
Not exactly. But, I have a lot of respect for Dave and his role on the city commission.
Sure.
And being involved in the community. And there are, of course, different points of view on just about anything you can throw out there. And that's the way it is. But I appreciate having Dave as my nephew, and we're part of the same family. We're both engaged and interested in our communities.
Very good. Being that said, you are running for governor.
Yes, sir.
You've been around the state, I assume.
Yep.
I know you've had a lot of meetings with folks and different groups. And I like to ask this question two different ways.
Sure.
What are the 2 or 3 most important topics that you think North Dakota is facing? And then, if it's different, what do you think the 2 or 3 biggest topics that the residents have been talking to you about?
Well, that's as they say when you're kind of struggling for a little time for an answer, you go, that's a good question. They might be both the same. You know,
that could be. Yeah.
What's the deep philosophical questions about, what is the future of our state? Why are we here? How can we contribute to the greater good of the state and therefore the nation? That's kind of a around the kitchen table, around breakfast conversation, But and I was thinking on the way into that, every legislative session, there's kind of a new hot topic.
Yep, I agree.
And this year, part of that conversation, well, there are two topics this year, and they are important long-term. Don't get me wrong. They're important long-term to the future of our state, and they are current hot topics. You probably have talked about them every week on your show. And we're talking about taxes. But taxes also, there is, property tax and income tax, but there's a long-term tax philosophy too. And so those differ a little bit. Your long-term philosophy does not deal necessarily with, okay, now we got to deal with property tax right now. We're going to reduce the income tax right now. Those are kind of hot topics, but they do belong in the long range, what's your taxing philosophy conversation as well. But first then, if we got talking about taxes, there's that measure that have they collected enough signatures yet? Have they turned them into the Secretary of State's
Saturday,
office?
I believe.
Okay.
Or
like
by noon Saturday or something like
that's
that.
they're due at that's the last day.
So if they've got it, we'll know this weekend.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if it even gets on the ballot.
Yep.
Yeah, I did not sign the petition. I would not vote for it were it on the ballot. Now, I'm not going to tell you how I vote on every candidate or on every issue today, if you ask me.
It wasn't my plan to. I mean, you're running as a Democrat. I just assume that's how you vote.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong.
A little digression here. I'm a member of the Democratic Nonpartisan League Party.
Okay.
A lot of people, it's called the Dem-NPL. A lot of people don't know what that NPL stands for. That's the Nonpartisan League that was formed in 1915. And it was a pretty radical movement that the farmers, mostly in northwestern North Dakota, originated in Crosby. The farmers there needed to unite to do something to save the family farm, literally save the farmers from the Minneapolis grain mill operators, from the railroad, and from the banking industry. And all three of those huge business sectors were headquartered in the Twin Cities. And the NPL formed because what those three major corporate entities were doing, they were conspiring to drive the North Dakota farmer out of business and scoop up the land at a dime on the dollar. And these farmers got together. They formed their own bank, the state of North Dakota, which is now, we would never give that up. Republicans wouldn't give it up for sure. Democrats wouldn't give it up. So they formed the state bank, and they formed the state mill and elevator, which is successful and returning profits to the state. This year, I think, in the form of relatively modest in the era of billions of dollars, but $5, $7, $8 million profit.
As long as it's not losing money, I guess.
And the bank is profitable and really helped with student loans for our North Dakota students over the years. And then what was originally a workman's safety division of government, which has turned into workman's comp, which has kind of flipped a little bit, kind of in favor of, some would say, in favor of business, but also was instrumental in women's voting rights and things like that. So it's that spirit of the Nonpartisan League that really attracted me to the North Dakota NPL party. Okay, there you got a little history. That's all you need to know. Let's talk about quickly this property tax. I'm not in favor of eliminating the property tax. Basically, many people are against it, groups and organizations, school districts, park boards, cities, townships, counties, you name it, for their own reasons, which most people understand by now. But, well, for the short term anyway, were it to pass, then all of these groups would be knocking on the door of state government to fund these things, at least until something else was figured out. And I don't think anybody wants to be lining up at the door of the state legislature asking for money to fund their various projects.
So let me push back just a little bit on that.
Sure.
Because I think that's a misconception a lot of people have.
All right.
So what this measure, Rick Becker's measure, would do is it'll say, okay, whatever you're at this year, it freezes there. So City of Fargo, we're around $25 million for property taxes. That's how it would stay.
Okay.
So forever, from now on, unless something changed, the legislature adding more dollars to it or whatever else, Fargo gets $25 million from the state automatically, no matter what.
For how long?
Forever.
Okay, well, see.
Until someone changes it.
See,
right?
what do I know?
That's fine. That's fine. So then, let's say in 5 years, City Food goes, well, just like, we usually have property taxes go up. Well, now they're only giving us $25 million. What can we do? Well, places like the city of Fargo would say, well, let's have a $40 a month road fee or whatever, right? You just can't tie taxes to the value of someone's home. And that's the win, I think. You're a 75-year-old man. You're
what? Really?
I looked you up, man. I Googled you.
I don't feel that old. I only feel
you look fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very much.
But a lot of people that are your age, they are on a fixed income, and especially in this, I hate to say it, this day and age, as inflation is impacting almost every single person out there. I think it's a massive relief to people to be able to keep $5,000 in their pocket that isn't going to property taxes, and if I have to pay a $40 road tax a month, in the future someday, I'm still up thousands and thousands of dollars every single year until those taxes get out of control, like they all taxes do. But one thing that I always wanted to ask people who are running for office why they're against it, it's like everyone who's against it is a taxing authority. And the reason that taxing authorities like it is because they can raise your taxes without really voting on it, right? They say, well, your value of your house went up, right? It's automatic. We have this many mills. That's a percent of your house. If it goes up, it goes up. I didn't raise your taxes. Your value of your house is up, and you should be happy about that.
Yeah,
and that's why I look at people and say, come on now. That's a really sneaky way to raise people's taxes.
I'm with you on that. And even if indeed, in Fargo, for example, that's where our radio show is taking place, the values of the homes go up. And usually that taxable value does not transfer into what really people can sell their homes for.
Oh, sure.
That's our common value. But at any rate,
Mary, we got about 1 minute. Okay. And then we can talk what's on the other side break too if you want. But tell you what, let's just take that break real quick.
That's fine.
And we'll continue this. I do want to talk about it more on that. Merrill Pepcorn, he is running for governor. He's currently a senator in the state of North Dakota in my district here in North Fargo. Yep. We'll have more talk about property tax, income tax, and other topics on the other side of the break. Welcome back to Thursdays with Tony. I'm here with Merrill Pepcorn, who's running for governor as a Democrat. We were talking about, property tax or income tax. That's been, like you said, the hot topic of this last session, and even with Doug Burgum running or not running again, and who's going to come in.
He's running around the country.
Yeah. Don't get me started. He's still my boss for now. So I'm in the Guard, and I'm not going to. I'm not going to say.
I love the Guard, by the way.
Great. I'm glad.
Where is that? We've got good friends who've been full-time Guard,
right on.
Part-time Guard. One of the most fantastic parts of our North Dakota government.
Yep, it really is good.
Yeah.
So with the property taxes, I'll put it like this and let you put a bow on it.
Sure.
People have lost their patience.
Yep.
We've been hearing, and you've been in the Senate for a while. You've been active for a while. You know that you've talked to people, and it's property taxes. Always property taxes they're talking about, and it seems like nothing's ever getting done. At least nothing permanent or nothing that actually affects them in any meaningful way. This year we got a $500 rebate. Okay, that's great. $500 is $500. But I'm still paying $5,000 a year in property taxes, and I live in a very, very normal house on the north side of Fargo.
Yeah.
So that's my pitch to you, is that people have lost their patience. They're saying, the heck with it. Either if you're not going to fix it, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to vote to get rid of property taxes, and you guys figure out how you're going to pay for it.
Okay, that's a simple way to put it. Yeah. No, it is. Yeah, I get it. There are not too many people who are going, oh, yeah, we love this property tax. A couple of things, and I'll make them quick, and then we can move on to another topic. There is a proposal now from Senator Dean Rummel from Dickinson. He's on one of the tax committees. He's on the interesting tax committee. I'm on another tax committee that does good work, but this is the one that people are curious about, that would include a $1,000 tax incentive credit on their income tax. And it would eliminate the sunset clause, which is on the current $500 one. And also, and it's probably would never wind up the way it's being proposed, it would also limit the city or the political subdivision, whatever it is, their ability to raise the evaluation of your house and limit it to a certain economic factor. I'm not sure
inflation is what he's proposing.
So, there's that. Okay, Here's my big idea, Tony, and it's not just me, but we're just talking. It's been mulling around and stewing around. People are anxious to do two things: lower the property tax, and they're also anxious to unlock some of those funds in the legacy fund.
I agree.
Now, the legislature is able to spend up to a certain percentage of the interest of that legacy fund.
Yep.
And maybe we can figure out a way to. I've got some meetings coming up with the head of the retirement and investment operations, RIO it's called, and they manage the legacy fund.Maybe there's a way we can unlock the door to the legacy fund and use that. My proposal. Now, it's not even a proposal. It's just it's a grand idea that if we could get the state would pay for, let's say, invest hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe $1 billion, maybe a little more than that, whatever it would take for public infrastructure. And in particular, schools. And there'd be a lot of negotiation. This would not be easy.
No.
But if you could invest in the schools, some schools have just already made those investments. We got to take that in mind. We work all that out. Then, since the school districts are the biggest culprit in the mind of the taxpayer for raising those taxes, that's why, and bond issues are constantly failing around the state because people are tired of it. If we could take care of that as a state, that would take care of the school's infrastructure, talking about additions, buildings, plumbing, security. A lot of schools are putting in new security systems. If we could take care of that for the next umpteen years, and then school districts hate the word, but cap their ability. Maybe it would just influence their ability enough so that they would not raise their taxes for the next umpteen years.
As I do, the schools don't raise taxes. They just take the extra valuation from the property taxes and go, hey, we didn't raise your taxes.
Yeah, well, there is that too. So it's complicated, but I think I'm hoping that, because it's our constitutional command for the state of North Dakota to provide for the public education of our children. And I think if we could invest a massive amount of money in, for example, school infrastructure, perhaps it would be township infrastructure, counties, and then kind of cap or whatever, again, the local officials don't like it, but you see where I'm coming from.
I do.
Anyway,
we got 5 minutes left. Remember, we got an email.
Oh my gosh.
We got an email from John.
Yeah.
So
from who?
From John.
Oh, not John.
You know John.
Oh, John.
How
please.
does Merrill feel about the state refinery and the state coal-fired power plants to make North Dakota energy independent. Xcel's green concept, making us dependent on non-reliable energy sources.
Well, first of all, Xcel can do whatever they want. Minnesota can do whatever they want. If they don't want to buy our coal-fired energy as clean as it may become, it's a lot cleaner than it was in the past. They're always working to improve it. If Minnesota doesn't want to buy our power, they don't have to. Although we have sued in the past unsuccessfully to make them, so to speak. And there's terms are being used. There's an assault on our energy here in North Dakota. I support keeping our Coal Creek Station, not recently purchased thanks to a very healthy loan from the state of North Dakota, to keep it going. But we have to be prepared for if it comes when nobody wants to buy our coal-fired energy. We don't want to be sitting here with nothing. So let's get the EERC, the Energy and Environmental Research Center in Grand Forks, which has been doing a lot of research for oil and coal. Great research. They know what they're doing up there. Let's focus on some of the other energy sources, some we may not even know about today that we're not talking about. But, for example, nuclear is working its way back into the conversation.
I agree.
People are scared of it. Two big objections there, the accidents and storage. But let's take a look at it. Let's try to figure it out. Because someday, if people don't want the energy that we're making, we should be prepared for what's next. That's my only argument there. But in the meantime, support it. My gosh, our state depends on the oil income. Okay,
yep, for sure.
Briefly there.
Meryl, can you win? I mean, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful
way
at all.
Exactly.
Yep.
You know, first of all, right out of the chute, I'm the most recognizable candidate that the Dem NPL could offer up because of my work across the state, because of my work with Prairie Public Radio. I traveled the state going to all sorts of conventions and towns and city gatherings and organizations for 13 years. I also traveled the state with my Dakota Air radio show. For 4 years, we did a show featuring the local economy, the local artists, the local what's going on here, from Rugby to Crosby to Wahpeton, from the Grand Forks down to Beach, North Dakota. We covered the whole state. I've made a lot of fantastically solid sound relationships with people through that. Through my legislative work, I've been not working for the underdog necessarily, but for people who feel that they've been less represented than they maybe should be, or they feel that they should be anyway. So I've got organizations over here in agriculture and in human services and township people and city people. I've got a lot of support from a lot of smaller groups around the state and people who just know who I am, and they've placed this responsibility on me. Merrill, we need a change. We need somebody who has all of North Dakota in mind that you as governor represent, and they've kind of tabbed me, they've dubbed me, and you're the person to do it, and I've taken that responsibility seriously. And yes, I think by gathering together a lot of these small different groups all around the state, we'll have enough votes to win this election.
I thought about your campaign and what I would do if I were you.
Okay, tell me.
And
because I always need new ideas.
I know. I'm serious though.
Yeah, I know.
There's a lot of people in North Dakota who call themselves Republicans.
Yeah.
I think that Republican, Democrat, I think both have kind of left the people in a way. They've moved the goalposts in a way. I don't consider myself a Republican. I consider myself a fiscal conservative, and I always have. And I think the Republican Party has left me in that regard. Mm-hmm. So I would like to see you run and say, hey, yeah, I'm for reducing your property tax. I'm for reducing your income taxes. We have all this money, unlocking the legacy fund. Let's not drain the legacy fund, but good golly, you have 700,000, 800,000 people in the state, and we have $50 billion in the bank. Let's put that to work for the people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
1 minute, Merrill.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not going to be jumping on board to reduce income taxes any further. I'll say that right out of the chute. But I am interested in investing in the future. I think our children are the most important part of that. I'm big also in supporting our public education. Maybe that's just because of the era that I grew up in, but that's extremely important as well. And I know some of the Republicans that you may be talking about. I'm not a big. I think we get painted with the National Democratic Party brush. We're not like that in North Dakota. We're North Dakota Democratic NPL, and we are here to work for North Dakota.
All right, Merrill Pepcorn running for governor for the Democratic Party. Thank you so much for being here. Next time we'll have to do it for an hour.
Well, let's do it. Let's do it again.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony.
Welcome back to the show, Thursdays with Tony. I'm your host, Tony Gehrig, former Fargo City Commissioner. I'm here with the current mayor of the city of Fargo, Tim Mahoney. Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Tony. I notice you're still proud of being a commissioner.
Oh yeah, throw it out there, right? Especially when you're talking to the mayor.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I'm going to start the way I always start with you, Tim. I will call you mayor, or I will call you doctor. I will not call you both.
Okay, you're mayor today because you and I wanted to talk about mayor issues.
That's right. That's right. All right, mayor. First of all, congrats on the water award. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you were part of utilities.
Yep.
And the guys do a great job, and I think the public understands when they see the red going past, it's pretty dirty water. And we got all the different ag things and things, chemicals in it that a lot of people, I mean, just an immense amount of things that we have. I think on your watch, we started to switch over to different technologies that cleaned it up even better. And that's what we see now. There's one huge room with all those filters in it. And they just do a great job. I'm just so proud of them and what they do.
Yeah, they certainly do. So I initially contacted you, I think it was a couple weeks ago, to come on. Today worked out best for me. But I wanted to get your reaction to the election, because now you have two pretty new commissioners. You know, you have Denise, who's been there for 2 years. You have Michelle, who's obviously brand new, never has had an office before. Have you met with Michelle, and what advice did you give if you did meet with her?
I did meet with Michelle. We had an early meeting right after she got elected, and it's kind of, I think you will recall it too when you first got elected. She's drinking from the fire hose.
Yep.
Just so much information that we're going through and so many things. So oftentimes people come in while they're running in the campaign. I had very few commissioners. Al Carlson was the only guy that came in and asked about budget issues. But none of the candidates came in, Tony, which I found surprising.
I did too.
I remember when you ran, I remember you looked into some things, and during your campaign, you made references to different departments or whatever. So I was a bit surprised about that. But when she came on board, we sat down and talked, and just get a general overview of the city, what we do, what happens, different departments, all sorts of things. In fact, she's coming in today for some more orientation. So basically her comment to me is, she said, I'm just going to take any input right now. She said, it's going to take me a while. Just give me some time, because you guys got so much stuff going on in the city. It's going to take a while to take it all in. And the only thing I said is the only difficulty, and you know this too, is when you first come in, end of June into July, we're doing budget.
Yep.
And, if you're going to influence the city and expenses and spending, it's during budget time. And so I think it's just a little bit of holy cow, what's going on? What do you do? What do we do different or whatever? Yep. So I think she'll educate up and will come along, and she's looking very forward to serve. She has a demographic of some people that want to see some things from her. So we'll see what happens as we go along.
Very good. Were you surprised Arlette didn't win? Because John did win, and when I think of Arlette and John, I think of them pretty politically aligned. Obviously, they're not exactly the same person. They have different votes here and there, but for the most part, I think that they would be the more liberal of the commissioners. So we have one relatively liberal commissioner who won in John Strand. Then you have Michelle Turnberg, who said that Donald Trump was her political idol, and then you have Arlette Preston, who was more along the lines of John. Were you surprised Arlette didn't win and John did?
Well, John put out the heart, I think, in his campaign, is he had a heart for the people, or he had a heart that he would try to help people. He pushed that pretty hard and tried to push that he's really trying to take care of that part of the community. I just found that Arlette did not necessarily push as hard as she could have on some items. And it was a funny campaign, right? I mean, when you ran, I ran, the yard signs were all over. I didn't see a lot of yard signs.
I know.
I didn't see a lot of campaigning, and a couple of the candidates didn't even go to some of the forums when they were offered an opportunity to go to the forum.
Right.
So that was surprising. I think when you ran, there were like 3 major open forums we had. The rooms were packed. And I chuckled a bit because one candidate came to the League of Cities meeting. He said, well, there's no people in this room. He said, well, who am I talking to?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was talking to me at home. I was watching it on TV,
right,
because he realized you could watch it on TV and see their debate. If it's on radio, you can listen to radio. So the campaign has changed a little bit. Turnberg, I didn't see her winning with that huge margin, basically. She was top voter early on. And it just seemed like, wow, there's a group out here that really liked her as a candidate. And it just caught me a little off guard. But I didn't think that Arlette ran as. I think Strand ran a harder campaign, and that's why I think he got elected.
Yeah, you're totally right. There were barely any signs out there. I know that when I ran, I had over 350 signs every time I ran that were out on people's yards, along with those big 8-foot signs. I know you had signs all over the place too. You had billboards, you had everything. And I met with every director of all the departments when I ran. It was very shocking to me that there were no signs and that they said they hadn't met with anybody.
Yeah, so it's a changing environment, but I think we'll still have good leadership. It's going to be fun to watch as the commission comes along, and always enjoy to see a new commissioner come on and kind of learn the ropes and then figure out what they want to represent or go after, and it'll be fun to watch.
701-293-9000. Email studio@wdayradionow.com. Contact with Tim Mahoney. You can watch us on Facebook or on YouTube. Be part of the show. Tim, you have 2 years left. I'm not talking like you're done or anything like that, but in very short order, in 18 months or less, there's going to be a new campaign for mayor, right? Would you be surprised if we had John Strand, Denise Kolpak, Arlette Preston, and Dave Pepcorn run for mayor?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, there's been some of that already going forward, and you've kind of seen that a little bit. Arlette has said now, in these papers, she wasn't going to run again, so that'll be interesting. John Strand has put out there that he's not really interested in mayor's position. As you know, in being politics, that changes over 2 years. What happens? Sometimes things motivate you. You get upset about something, and you say, "Oh heck, I'm not going to let that happen." I'll be real curious about the race because, as like say, I maybe been around too long, but it'll be a new face being mayor, so that's going to be kind of interesting.
Well,
so,
you've been around.
Looking forward to what happens in 26.
Right, and you've been around since 2005. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yep. So you have some invested time, Tim Mahoney, in this position as a Fargo City Commissioner. Last question I'll ask before a break here: are you going to endorse anybody that runs for mayor? I'm not saying you have to endorse somebody now. What I'm saying, when everyone announces and you find the candidate you want to succeed and take over the reins of the city of Fargo, do you intend to endorse somebody?
I've always kind of stayed out of that, Tony. You and I both know that one time that Denny Welliker endorsed Sobolek, and that set up forever hard feelings at the commission. My anticipation is when I would retire from being mayor, I'd like to help the new mayor out. So I'll continue with my status of that. I don't endorse people.
Okay, when I run for mayor, you're going to endorse me. How about that?
Good try there, buddy.
All right, Mayor, let's go to break here real quick. We'll get to phone calls and comments on the other side of the break, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about current events happening here in the city of Fargo. Obviously, a lot going on. So we'll talk about EPIC, we'll talk about crime and homelessness, we'll talk about all that kind of fun stuff I know you're looking forward to talking about on the other side of the break. We'll see you all there. Welcome back to the show. We got about 11 more minutes here with Tim Mahoney, mayor of Fargo. He's also a doctor, I guess. All right, Tim. It's short time here. I want to take advantage as much as I can here. You guys have talked about the pay scale in the city of Fargo. This has been a conversation that's been going on as long as I can remember on the city commission. I was a little surprised at your reaction about, hey, maybe now's not the best time, maybe not this much, maybe. Why don't you tell people what you were saying? Because I expected you to be the guy really pushing for higher wages.
Well, I think there's two things I need to go over a little bit, Tony. So
Okay.
There's the pay scale change that you might do, which is $5 million. It's pretty expensive.
Very.
Or could you do a COLA? And you and I have talked about that.
Absolutely.
So you do a COLA, everybody goes up. In fact, you had kind of a graded COLA at one time. But what happens is that 30% of the employees, you don't necessarily get a step or don't get an advance. So what happens is your more senior employees, oftentimes, they're dependent on either a COLA to go up. I know you were in the service, and we sometimes got into that, right? What was the amount that feds gave, what was the amount versus civilians or whatever. What we know is we're behind the pay scale, and you and I both know in the city of Fargo. What's happened is we've had tremendous competition to get jobs, and and for a while there, it was kind of frustrating. We were training front end loaders, and then once they get trained up,
Right.
6 months, boom, they went over into the private practice type stuff. And that got kind of tiring to do that. And same thing, like, you got a guy who run a snowplow and not knock a mailbox off. I mean, it's
Right.
it's pretty important to have that. You don't get as many complaints from the clients or the taxpayers. So that was one aspect. The other aspect is, you and I haven't talked about this, but you did fireman portfolio at one time. And, a lot of times when a fireman signed up, they almost signed up for life, right? I mean, it was like they joined the family, they stayed with it.
Yep.
And what's happening now in the younger generation is, it's sometimes, you join the fire department, then you get married, start having kids, and then it's like, I don't really like this schedule, and boom, they're gone. So what we're seeing a little bit, and the same thing, I think you understand what I was talking about, new generation, is you may change your career 5 times.
Right.
You're going to change your career a little bit here. And so what's happening is that idea that everybody will stay with forever, our retention rate or loss of people is 11%. But I know in some professions it's 20, 30%. People do not stay with the job. They go on somewhere else and do something else. So it's pay, it's environment, and the other issue is I was trying to talk to you last night is your retirement, right? Because before, if you joined a public organization, you said, well, the retirement's great, so I'll do the retirement. Well, PERS went away, and now you get a 401k. So you're just like risk any other guy with a 401k. If the market's up, you're doing pretty good. If the market's down, it's not quite the same. But young people aren't necessarily looking for, I think the thing that's changed generationally is, I always remember a guy, the way he was 65 and he was going to retire, then he was going to travel, then he was going to vacation, then he was going to do his stuff. Kids today with their families are vacationing now, are doing things now with their kids. They're doing things, they're not waiting until they're older.
Right.
They're doing it, and it's part of their lifestyle. We have people who don't like to sign up for overtime because, right, you can make extra money on a weekend, but that's a weekend that you don't have with your son, right? So we're seeing more people that it's a little different generation. I'm not saying it's less unhealthy. It might be healthier to do that, to make sure you take your vacation, make your time with your people. But it does change how you hire, how you run your pay scale, because maybe you want your money early in your career. Maybe you want your steps or your advances earlier in your career versus late in the career. So we're starting to see like a generational differences on how people are reacting to, okay, this is what I'd like in pay scale. We've gone through all the 22 departments, and it's really amazing to me to listen to different departments. Some very happy, like with their other departments, nope, here's what we'd like to see. So we're starting to deal with that. We have a new generation out there, a new workforce out there, and how do you keep them happy working with us and doing the things they need to?
Yeah, I think most organizations are feeling it, businesses, governments, whatever. Even in the military, it is a different world where people are taking all their leave, right, Tim? And they're not necessarily piling up 100 days of leave.
Yeah. And I remember a lot of guys, like gals, would hang on to it, and then when they went, then they get a big check, which
Right.
they love to get. Yeah, so I never took any vacation. Well, now that's really not what people like to advocate for. Is that you should take your vacation. You should, and also know it sometimes people are a better mood, better healthy when they are able to take some time off. So
Sure.
to me, that has changed tremendously in that area. So that's what on the pay scale. Okay, yeah, you might want to correct the pay scale, but is that what you really need to do? And the secondary part, and you were always good for this, is can we afford it?
Right.
What can we afford with the revenue we have?
Well, I appreciate your caution, because as a commissioner, you want to keep your people happy because you appreciate the people and you know we can't do the city work without them. So a lot of times commissioners are overly generous because they don't want to offend the workers. But $5 million a year, people need to understand, is a giant chunk of money for the city of Fargo. That equates to somewhere around 4% of our entire general fund budget in just a pay increase. That's not just the pay, that's the pay increase. So I appreciate your caution. Mayor, you've been there a long time. You've been there since 2005. By the time you're gone, you'll have been there for 21 years. The style of government that we have has not changed in decades, okay? The mayor's still not full-time. We still have 5 commissioners. They're still all at large. Do you foresee a scenario where we should move away from that? Maybe have a full-time mayor. Maybe have 7 commissioners. Maybe have a ward system and an at-large system, a mixed system, which most cities of our size do have. Given your experience, are you still enthusiastic about the commission-style government with a part-time mayor, or do you see changes?
Well, I can give you a great example because you've touted about it that you might run for mayor. The problem is, like if a young person does do that, Tony, you and I both know. Okay, let's say you have 2 kids. The average person has 2 children and a job. $50 grand a year that really doesn't help you with that. You'd have to be dependent on a wife working or something else going on. I think the quality of candidates you get for mayor would improve if you did it as a full-time mayor. And I could show you my schedule this week. I'm packed from 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock every day almost because we've got an event at the Broadway Square. Last night we had the police event. I think it's time in this community for us to have a full-time mayor because all the events go on. And you knew this too. Is I'm oftentimes working on 3 or 4 things federally, statewide, and locally, and you need somebody's attention. But I always also want to increase the what kind of candidates you might have. I like the commission form. I understand the ward form. I think the thing that would be something we should assess is maybe we need 7. I think that's a great question because you get a great interest. Isn't it amazing to you that the county doesn't always get people even to run against somebody?
Right.
But in the city, we typically, we'll have 7 or 8 candidates for mayor or 15 candidates for commission. I mean, there seems to be great interest in the city of Fargo. Mm-hmm. And I just went through candidates for the Planning Commission. I had great candidates that really want to get involved with the government. So I do think that has to be discussed. We did talk about the wards one time, and I know you were in a governance committee that went through that. We tried to relook at that, and I couldn't get people excited to come in and talk about it.
Okay.
So that's why, it might be a town hall. Let's have a town hall sometime and talk about it and see what people want to do. But that's where I would put that is that let's talk about maybe 7, and I think a full-time mayor it's time to do that.
Well, we agree on 2/3. That's a good thing. We got 3 we got 3 minutes, Mayor. I just want you to address this real quick. Do you believe Fargo is at a point where we're becoming an unsafe city? Homelessness, addiction, crime, speeding. These are the things you read in the newspaper on a daily basis, and I think people are starting to really be concerned. You as mayor, do you believe we're an unsafe city?
Not at all, and I think actually some things are coming out. We were just talking about some new enhancement on cameras that we're doing. Flock, I think you may have heard about it, Tony, in which they have ability to help us in solving crime. We have an intelligent crime unit that's coming along. The homeless population we're attacking full force. We're meeting weekly on that particular aspect. James Mason has helped us on some of that, and you'll see us do a variety of things that will come across. I've got a second mobile one that's patrolling downtown to help to keep the people feel safe and comfortable. We have a police force that's a good number of people that we have out there. You'll see a variety of different things we're continuing to do. Every city in the nation is having an issue with this racing and vehicles, and so that's something we have to address. This is a great thing you can advocate for. Is we need help with the legislative body. $25 for a speeding ticket is just not enough. There's no deterrent with that, and I don't know if you saw the stats the other day, Tony, but 80% of kids are running away from getting picked up. I mean, 80%. So if you've got 80% taken off, come on, let's figure out a way to manage that. One of the ways is if I got the license plate, it's charged out to that car. You go to the home, parents get a fine of $300, $350, and they talk it out with their son. But we have no deterrent for that right now. There'd be some different aspects that you could look at in legally sense that the legislative body can help us out with. So I think it's got to be a commitment by the state, by the locals, everybody to work together. And the other part I'd say that we're urban city now. We're the big city. So what's happening is you're seeing a lot more things happen in the community. You're hearing about it, but we're addressing it and taking care of it. And I was just at the police picnic last night and had a variety of people come up to me, and I said, do you feel safe? Do you feel happy in this community? And the answer was overwhelmingly yes.
Yep, I agree with you, Tim. All right, Mayor Tim Mahoney, City of Fargo, thanks as usual for your time, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon and well before you're done in office in 18 months.
Okay, buddy.
All right. See you later, Tim. Tim Mahoney, City of Fargo Mayor. All right, folks, that's the show for this Thursday. Next week, we'll have some more guests on. And next time I have Merrill on, I'm going to need to do an hour. That guy, he's gifted at the gift of gab. So we'll let him on for an hour next time. And, of course, we'll ask Kelly Armstrong to come on as well, who is also running for North Dakota governor. We'll see you guys next Thursday here on Thursdays with Tony.